UFC Shanghai, Umar Nurmagomedov versus Song Yadong. In my prediction, of course, I think Umar Nurmagomedov, besides the Merab loss, he's shown exquisite skill inside the cage. Even the Corey Sandhagen win, when Sandhagen was a much better version of himself, that win was incredible. Umar was able to handle everything on the feet that Corey gave him, was able to backpack him the whole time. A lot of people found that fight boring. I found it skillful, and Umar trains obviously with one of the best camps in the world. That Dagestani wrestling is unmatched. And I think that even with the performance against Figueiredo, which was a bit disappointing, he didn't really push the pace like I'd like him to. And Umar didn't really show the facets to his skill set as I've seen in other fights. I still think that in this fight, he'll be forced to wrestle a lot more. And when he's forced to wrestle, he's one of the best in the world. A lot of people felt like you could have given him 2, maybe 3 rounds against Merab. I think that's a stretch. But I think if you gave him the first couple rounds, that was highly, there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like Umar did enough in those first 2 rounds to show Merab that he was in fact the better fighter. Merab just outlasted him like he does with everybody. But Umar might be the most skilled guy in that division. Peter Yan, it's arguable, but we've seen lapses in Peter Yan's judgment. We've seen lapses in Peter Yan's pace early in fights, whereas Umar always puts on a substantial pace. He's always willing to walk guys down. He has confidence in his kickboxing and in his wrestling, of course, which is always something in his back pocket that not only he can rely on, but that guys have to respect at all times. Because, once he starts shooting on you, it's going to be trouble because his clinch work is fantastic. He's got a submission skill set, as we saw against Barcelos. If he hits you in the right spot, you're going out too. So Song Yadong made a ton of improvements in his judo game. I personally thought he won the O'Malley fight. It was a very close fight. It was like on a razor that you could have given that decision to either guy because it was kind of based on the first 2 rounds. Obviously, Song, he got the takedowns. He did well with the wrestling, and it really, I think, comes down to that first round if you thought O'Malley did enough work. But Song Yadong really did win the latter half of that round just with takedowns, control, and we've seen a lot of guys even struggle to control O'Malley. Peter Yan got a ton of takedowns against O'Malley but wasn't able to control him, so it shows you that Song Yadong's really worked on his top pressure, his overall judo game, and I like that, and it might help him out here because against Figueiredo, we didn't really see much from Yadong either. He got the submission win, which was fine, but Figgy's just way past it. And Song Yadong is still a dangerous striker in that division. Great pace, great power. You can argue he's still one of the hardest hitters in that division. And he's only been beaten by the best when they were the best. Even the Corey Sandhagen fight, he was never out of it. It was really the cut that took him out. So I like Song Yadong's skill, but I just think Umar's the better fighter. Now, if you're asking me if 7-1 is fair, absolutely not. So if you're going to take a stab at Song Yadong just for value's sake, I think that's more than fair. But Umar is the play here by decision. There's a guy called UFC Prediction Tracker out there. I know you're watching this, or at least watching some of my picks and results. So I am going to start leaving the results in there just so I don't get docked on that tracker. So I'll be leaving the method in all these fights as well, and I'm sure people will appreciate that, maybe. But Umar by decision seems fair. Song Yadong, very durable guy. I don't see a finish on either side. If you were going to take a finish, Song is obviously capable of the knockout or the submissions lately, so you can always take a stab at that, because I do feel like Song would have to finish Umar to get a win, because Umar is just going to win the vast majority of time if it goes to the cards, and Umar could lose a few minutes of the fight and be in danger at points, but he's going to use that wrestling to come back. And 5 rounds really does play to Umar. I don't think Song works well over long fights. His volume is solid, but it does wane a bit, and Umar is just a very consistent fighter, especially when he gets the back, gets that grappling going. So, again, Umar by decision. Co-main event, Xiaonan versus Denise Gomes. Xiaonan, she's had her ups and downs. Denise Gomes fought well, knocked out Elise Reed. I think Xiaonan, her performances against Andrade and even her performance against Weili Zhang, those are really the highlights of her career, because against Weili Zhang, although it was completely dominant and arguably one of the most statistically dominant fights of all time for a champion in terms of what Weili did, if you notice, Xiaonan hurt her badly in a lot of frames of that fight, was able to get her own takedowns in that fight, dropped Weili Zhang, looked fantastic against the champion, put up a better fight than most anybody, except obviously Valentina Shevchenko when she moved up. But you look at Xiaonan's wins, against Mackenzie Dern, the split to Marina where she was a massive underdog, and a lot of people think she pulled that off. The Carla Esparza loss was kind of a wake-up call for her because she's looked nothing but fantastic, and you really got to chain wrestle Yan Xiaonan to win. And I don't think Denise has that in her repertoire. She can wrestle a bit. She's a power puncher, but can she really chain together takedowns all 3 rounds? I don't really think so. We've seen her use the clinch work. We've seen her do well in fights, but even the Eduardo Mora fight, she suffered a bit. She was really behind in the grappling. Every one of those exchanges she was behind. So obviously Yan Xiaonan doesn't want to get hit by one of those hammers, but I was surprised that Yan Xiaonan is such a so close in the odds. I felt like she would get a little more respect here because I feel like it's a pretty obvious play, but obviously it's women's MMA. You can't trust any of these ladies fully and completely here. But Yan Xiaonan, I think it's a great pick, especially in China. You know what I mean? So we'll take Yan Xiaonan by decision there. And then Aoriqileng versus Kaya Asakura. What's interesting here is that Kaya Asakura is actually going to be taller than Aoriqileng and have some reach on him. And for bantamweight, these guys aren't massive, but they are taller for the division. And I just think that Aoriqileng, he shows glimpses of brilliance. He's a solid striker. That first round knockout loss to Ayman Zahabi is just flashing in my face, though. In my head, I should say. And I mean, Asakura is completely lethal in there. If you give him the right opportunities to hit you clean, which Aoriqileng will, I don't really think his defense is up to snuff. I think Kaya Asakura can easily put him out. I am going to take the TKO here just because it is Kaya Asakura, and that's what he does. He knocks people silly. But I could see it going all 3 rounds. If Aoriqileng just uses his length a little bit. They've both play that kickboxing battle, but again, Kaya Asakura, he can win a fight by decision. He can touch you and put you out. This guy is pretty special on the feet, so I got to take Asakura here. But I do have some weird reservations about this fight. I do think Aoriqileng could pull it off in China. That's just kind of how I'm feeling. I don't think it's like an uber lock to me. Asakura is kind of shaky to me, but very talented guy, did great in Risen, obviously had a tough run in the beginning of his UFC career just fighting all grapplers, so I do feel like it favors Asakura to fight a guy who's just going to stand with him for 3 rounds, so I will take Asakura there by TKO. Alex Perez versus Sumudaerji. Oh man, I just watched the first fight, right? Sumudaerji and Alex Perez, and that one was actually in China as well, so I don't know, man. Rematches are always different, and who's to say that Alex Perez won't come a little differently now that he knows what to expect from Sumudaerji, and Sumudaerji might adapt as well. In all frankness, the first fight was a complete wash to Sumudaerji, and watching it today, Sumudaerji was lighting Perez up. Perez had a few flurries in the beginning that put Sumudaerji on the back foot, but at the end of the day, Sumudaerji was lighting him up, lighting his legs up, dropped him, was even handling the takedowns well, great takedown defense, was even on top of Alex Perez and just sprawling incredibly well. Alex Perez had absolutely nothing for him. Now, obviously, the fight got stopped due to a low blow, and the low blow was skimming, and obviously those can be extremely painful. If you're a man, you know what's up. You know that can suck. Even if it's just like a skim, it's a guy kicking hard, And Alex Perez was obviously in turmoil. He was in pain. He was vomiting. He was hurt. But there was also an element of just complete loss. He knew he was done for. If he didn't quit in that fight and I won't call it quitting, if he didn't kind of let go of the fight just because of the low blow, he was losing that fight probably by finish. Sumudaerji had just dropped him. It was pretty early in the round. Sumudaerji was stopping all the takedowns, lighting him up. I could have easily seen Sumudaerji stopping him. So I'm going to take Sumudaerji by TKO in this one in rewatching the first fight. And it's an immediate rematch, which puts so much more stake into what happened in the first fight. I can put more trust into what happened there because they're literally seeing each other again immediately. They're training for each other again. I don't think it's going to be that much different in terms of the trajectory of how that fight was playing out. It's really just going to be an elongated first fight, and I think Sumudaerji was outclassing him. Alex Perez obviously has that first round knockout, first round sub capability where he might catch a guillotine, but He even tried the guillotine. He was trying for takedowns. The grappling was moot, and Sumudaerji was just lighting him up. So in China, I respect the odds here. I think the odds makers know what's up, and I'm going to take Sumudaerji there. André Lima versus Namsrai Batbayar, I believe that's how you pronounce it. André Lima coming back after that dreadful performance against Kevin Borjas. Me personally, people are going to call me crazy. I thought Lima won that fight, okay? I know Borjas landed good shots, harder shots throughout, but he just didn't do enough for me. Like, André Lima's leg kicks seemed to be the determining factor in that fight for me in terms of damage. I think Borjas did land better punches at times, but the leg kicks and walking down Borjas the entire time. I mean, cage control is a real thing too, and Borjas was looking for a way out of that fight early. Like, let's not forget about that. You know, he really was looking for a way out, got all his gas back, and then, you know, came back and did well. No, it was a very close fight, and Lima, being as massive of a favorite as he was and being as hyped as he was, should not have made it that close. And I knew there was going to be a problem with that year and a half nearly late that year to year and a half layoff that he took. You know, that's never good for a fighter to take that long off, because they're going to be reeling. They're going to feel that time off. The layoffs are what affects fighters more than anything. Staying active, staying consistent, staying motivated. And who knows, it might have been an injury or something like that, but I do feel like that cost him in that fight. You know, he just was so lackadaisical. He couldn't do much. So the leg kicks and the pressure I did like, but Batbayar seems to be hungry, man. And I just don't even know if I see that hunger in Lima. If I were to take Lima, it would just to be taking the chalky play. And I'm like, I'm just going to trust the sports books on this one, because I don't know Batbayar's skill level. I know the road to UFC performances were fantastic. He has knockout power. Seems like he's good on top. It seems like he understands positional grappling, but I just don't know how good he is. But I'm going to take him here. You know, they're going to open André Lima, another sizable favorite here. And it's like, why would I take that? Why would I risk putting any eggs into this basket when this dude has broken them before? You know, he has definitely cost us before. He's lost before. And that Borjas loss was just insane. And I never thought he was that good anyway. You know, Severino was honestly taking him down a ton and dominating him before he decided to bite him. And the Perez performance was solid, and he has some good wins. The Raposo win was a split, but I thought he dominated Raposo for the most part. But these are kind of low-level guys, you know. So Batbayar in China, it's always a bit tough for the foreigner to go out there. And honestly, I said that Brazilians definitely can sweep a card, but this one is more of a value thing, you know. And I just think that André Lima, what he showed us in his last fight is that he's not really up to snuff in terms of what we thought. So I'll just take a risk on Batbayar, you know, by decision here. So that's really all. And then Ray Tsuruya versus Kevin Borjas. Kevin Borjas stinks. You know, I don't care if he beat André Lima. What's crazy is that he even dropped Emmanuel Rodrigues twice and then kind of gassed out and gave up. He gives up on himself in there. You know, you could tell he even wanted to quit against André Lima. He's an annoying fighter. You can't really get a good read on him because his striking isn't terrible. His boxing is formidable early in fights. But this has got to be one of the worst matchups for him. Ray Tsuruya is just going to be diving at his legs, taking him down, looking for that submission. I think the way Borjas fights, it kind of plays to Ray Tsuruya getting a submission here. So that is what I'm going to take. Borjas is just a pure boxer, striker type. Tsuruya, a wrestler, a grinder. He showed that he can finish fights in his last one. Gruel, I think, took that fight on short notice in the last one, but doesn't matter. Gave Tsuruya some confidence. Borjas, again, he's always looking for a way out of the fight, okay? And he doesn't have the best gas tank, especially if you are forcing him to grapple or counter the wrestling. And I think Tsuruya's got a lot of confidence here, and I think this guy's going to start showing us that he is insanely good. The Van fight, I mean, man, he was dominating Van with the wrestling, you know, just Van is just otherworldly on another level. And when that's your only loss in the UFC and your only loss period, that's an obvious play to me. So if Tsuruya isn't minus 500 here, he should be. Tsuruya by sub is the play, for me at least. Obviously, decision or sub makes sense, but obviously anything can happen if Tsuruya's working on his striking, if he's working on his ground and pound, but I think the sub is the way to go here. Jack Jenkins versus Sean Woodson. Interesting fight here. Kind of a, like, why is this fight happening? I mean, I guess they got to make fighters fight. They're on contracts, you know, so Doesn't really have too much meaning in the division. Jack Jenkins, we know what he has. He has good low kicks, okay boxing. His grappling is whatever. It's subpar. I thought his grappling was okay until Gabriel Santos just completely destroyed him on the ground. And Woodson is a guy, who he's not underrated or overrated in a way. He's just inconsistent and just kind of hard to pin. I think his Jourdain performance was one of his best. It was a split, not to me though. I think he unanimously beat Jourdain. So it shows he can keep the distance well and stop submission grapplers from utilizing that on him, especially with those long limbs. I think he can stay out of danger pretty well. Obviously, Woodson is always going to be oversized for the division. So tall, so much reach for featherweight, and yeah, that's really all I can say. I'm going to take Woodson here by decision. I think he's just going to pick Jack Jenkins apart. But if Jack is able to land some takedowns, get those low kicks going, and really hurt Woodson to the body, I think that's the way he's got to get it done. Because if not, Woodson just going to be pot-shotting him all night, and it'll be a vintage Woodson performance where he just looks fantastic. Woodson's really only had problems with guys who can match his length, like Rosa and Saldana, and those are really, I think, his only 2 UFC losses, and those guys were just able to match his length. Like I said, Saldana was able to use his reach and hurt him early, and then Rosa was obviously a veteran and had grappling in his back pocket as well, but they were able to just kind of match that length and nullify what Woodson does so well, which is stay at range and be the longer guy. So yeah, I think he'll be the longer guy here all fight, and I'll take Woodson by decision. Levi Rodrigues Jr. versus Su Lu. I think that's how you pronounce it. Excuse me if I'm saying that incorrectly. So Lu is massive for light heavyweight. Dude's like 6'5", 78-inch reach. Just a pure monster out there. Very inexperienced, though, 3-1. This is honestly a tough one. I've been going back and forth on this one. It looks like Liu has a lot of kickboxing experience, and he is good when he throws leg kicks. They are so heavy. I think Rodrigues has to be extremely careful of the kicks, the low kicks, and the body work from Liu. I think Rodrigues actually has a pretty good chin. It's just his cardio kind of suffers if he's not finishing dudes early. I mean, I feel like this one's going to end pretty early regardless. Somebody's going to win by finish. I mean, that seems kind of obvious. I mean, these are massive light heavyweights who go for the kill every time. But Levi, whatever, he's stepping in on somewhat short notice here, which is worrisome. But it's also a detriment to Liu because he's inexperienced. He's been training for one guy, and now he's going to get this explosive Brazilian dude throwing hammers at his head. And Levi is not even that big of an underdog here. And I thought he might even be the favorite just because he has more experience. He has UFC experience now, etc. He's used to the big show. Liu was fighting this Russian guy in his last one, and I was impressed with the performance. Landed a big leg kick, was able to out-grapple the guy, end up on top, land some big shots. Then I look at the guy's record, he's 2-6. And Liu's record is kind of filled with these guys who are just not experienced, not very skilled, whereas Rodrigues, he did lose to Franco. And I did take Franco in that one because I was telling a lot of people, Franco was moving down from heavyweight. He's a super tough, durable guy. Franco's only real losses were because of his gas tank, and he looks amazing at light heavyweight, and I feel like he's going to be a real threat there. And so losing to him isn't so bad. People might look at that like a bad loss, but I actually don't. So I'm going to take a shot on Rodrigues here. I think sometimes there's these cards where it's easy to take all the hometown guys, but these Brazilian fighters, man, you can never underestimate them. There's some cards where all the Brazilians just take over, and when I still feel like Brazilians are the best fighters of all time, and they make so many fantastic fighters, so many good gyms out there besides the U.S., obviously, but they're pioneers of the sport. They always have explosive power, good jiu-jitsu, and Rodrigues has that. He has explosive power, a willingness to really fight in the pocket or at range, and I feel like that's going to be to Liu's detriment and downfall. I think if Liu is trying to keep the range and Rodrigues keeps pressing him and crashing the distance, landing hard shots, it's going to be tough, and obviously Liu's size is going to be a factor here, but I don't know. A lot of inexperience. A 3-1 guy probably shouldn't be in the UFC anyway. He is massive for the division again, so if he beats Levi, he'll impress me here, but we're going to take a dog shot on Rodrigues. All right, Lawrence Louis versus Hector Santiago. Lawrence Louis, he fought that guy in his last one, that very young Chinese fighter. Let me look up his name because unique name. I actually took the opponent in that last one to win because I saw Solin Grongbo. Right, it's a very weird name. Unique name, though, nonetheless. So Solin Grongbo was a fantastic striker, and you could argue Solin Grongbo won that fight. Lawrence Louis, solid takedown, solid aggression, solid pace throughout, and he was able to work that on the young 20-year-old. But every time he was on the feet, Lawrence looked lost, rocked. Solin Grongbo eventually was able to stop the takedowns pretty well and beat him up on the ground, but Louis was just able to use that pace and pressure to get some ugly clinch work in there and take him to the ground and win the fight like that. But Hector Santiago, 6-1, only lost by rear naked choke. So obviously if Louis is able to exploit Santiago taking the fight on short notice and exploit his lack of grappling, etc., we can see a finish on Louis' part. But what I've seen from Santiago, in every fight, he is sparking dudes. This guy has special power. There's nothing that looks special about his boxing skill set, really, off the bat. But when you see him hit dudes, his power is just unbelievable. And I was watching his fight in a Money Moicano MMA 1, like the first event Moicano actually held as like his version of like the UFC and him as Dana White, I guess. Good event too. And Hector Santiago's on there and the fight just, nothing's really happening. And then bang, just a clean punch through the middle of the guy's guard. He's just leaving it open a little bit. Bang, he's out. And when I see stuff like that, I cannot look past it because I was ready to fade Santiago and be like, this dude's just a run-of-the-mill boxer. He's just looking to knock guys out. But there is something special about this guy's power, man. I am telling you, if you watch his fights, you can see it, and it is crazy. His accuracy is sick, but his power is next level. And I think Louis is going to be in big trouble if he's going to sloppily wrestle this guy and stand on the feet with him for prolonged periods. I think Santiago's going to land those shots and put him out. Honestly, I think this guy is kind of special. So maybe I'm tripping. Maybe the level of competition was just low and couldn't take it. But when he's doing everybody like this, I mean, it's bad. Lawrence Louis is going to have to walk through some thunder because I did not like his striking at all. And fights start on the feet, and I don't think he's some supreme wrestler. He's kind of just a clincher, grappler type of guy. And I think Santiago's going to land hard. So we're going to take Santiago by TKO there. Long Xiao versus Francesco Nuzzi. Nuzzi is a confounding fighter, because I watched him fight pre-PFL and now pre-UFC, of course, and he fought for a wide array of organizations. I think he fought for, I don't want to misspeak, but I know he fought for Brave. I know he fought Bernardo Sopai. He fought Manuel Souza, who he was actually tagging up, and Souza quit in that fight. He got punched in the eye and called it an eye poke, and then he took a low blow and then quit on that. So Souza was just looking like a complete fraud against Nuzzi. Sopai even got dropped early, Sopai got dropped early by Nuzzi, and I'm like, this guy's a beast. And then you see him in PFL, so when he fights in the U.S., he fights Mando Gutierrez, and Gutierrez just dogs him out in the pocket and then ends up taking his back and submitting him. And I'm like, oh, maybe this dude just doesn't fight well in the U.S., for reasons unknown. But we can take a guess or two. So it kind of makes me think that Nuzzi is kind of an overachiever in those organizations and an underachiever in these American organizations. And Long Xiao, although it is in China, it's still in the UFC banner. And who knows? It's an even money fight, but I think that Long Xiao has shown enough in his career to let us know that he can wrestle. Because I think Nuzzi is always going to be a problem if you strictly stand with him. But Long Xiao is actually going to be the bigger man here. Usually Nuzzi enjoys that metric on his side where he's usually the taller guy with the longer reach, but Long Xiao is going to be taller with some reach on him, so I think that'll help the boxing. I think Long Xiao's shown that he can get takedowns and really work a pace, so he's not going to be overwhelmed by Nuzzi's pace or his length or his power or anything like that. So I'm going to go for Long Xiao in China. I just feel like it's the right play. I think it'll be a close, fun, uptick fight. Either guy can definitely win this one, and I'm not counting Nuzzi out. I'm going to take Long Xiao by decision, but it's not a confident play at all. Obviously, it's an even money fight. Usually I can lean to one side, but this one I am a bit conflicted on. It's more so what I saw from Nuzzi in that last PFL performance that kind of took me out of it. So I could see Long Xiao even submitting him. I'm tempted to even take that, but Long Xiao by decision seems like the right play there. All right. And then Bilal Hasan versus Nilson Rojas. I actually just put out a video on this one today as well. So if you want to check that out, check it out. I give a few minutes of my thoughts and how this one will play out. So in a short recap, Bilal's 5-1 in this one. He's going to open a massive favorite until they give him a real step up. He's so well-rounded. Rojas is a solid striker. So I do think he's going to put up a tougher test than Bilal's Contender Series debut. But regardless, I think Bilal wins a decision here, even though he is a massive favorite. I just think that Rojas is tough, undefeated guy, great striking. I think Bilal's going to have to resort more to his grappling here. So I do lean the decision or the submission. I am going to take the decision, though, just to give Rojas some credit. But Bilal is going to thrash these guys until, again, he meets a guy who's on his level or who can at least level him up a little bit, and that's not going to happen with these sorts of guys. And the UFC is probably going to step him up in his next one. I mean, they have to. If they really want to make something out of this kid, he's not like 4-0. He's 9-0, going on 10-0. Yeah, so he'll get the burst from the brass soon, I think, when they really push him, But yeah, he should use his grappling here because Rojas, if he has any chance at all, it's going to be with the hands on the feet. He is tough. He likes to lock guys down. He's durable. Wasn't overly impressed with anything I saw because if the second I see something special in one of Bilal's opponents, I'm going to start thinking twice about taking him, especially because he's going to be such a massive favorite. But he's going to have that Indonesian push, only second Indonesian fighter ever, so expect to see a lot of Indonesian support there, and he's carrying that pride with him, so I got to rock with Hasan by decision there. Jingnan Xiong versus Julia Polastri. I hate to be insulting off the bat, but both these ladies are terrible. Xiong especially disappointed me. Obviously, Angela Hill is a very tough debut. Very tough, but at Angie's age, to get bullied by her like that and to get dropped by her and to just be eating flying knees and whatever Angie was throwing. And the thing that pissed me off about Xiong is that she was losing the fight blatantly and she would just keep taunting Angela like, come here, and I'm like, you're losing this fight. You look really bad. You look ignorant. Your fight IQ is low. And I get it. When you're out of gas, there's nothing to do. You just got to put on that mean face and be like, I'm still ready for you. But just all bad. She does have some slick counters, some power in her hands. Luckily for her, Polastri is just awful. I was watching the Alencar fight. Alencar is a solid grappler. She was like 35 at the time, but beating Polastri on the feet too. And Polastri's only really win, which he got a performance bonus somehow for, was the Karolina Kowalkiewicz stoppage, which is crazy to me because it's like, what are you giving these performance bonuses to women who are not even UFC level? And she stops a woman in Karolina who was a perennial top 5 of the division, but way past it, like 40 years old and obviously not looking herself, and you're going to give her a performance bonus for literally just like cutting the rope when the rope was already like about to break. Like, it makes no sense to me, man. So Polastri is just awful. She's going to have some reach in this fight and some height, but she ain't going to use it. She don't use it. So I think Xiong's going to win this. This is just a tailor-made matchup for her. The level of Angie Hill to Polastri is just, it's light years away. It's a completely new stratosphere of skill and type of opponent. Obviously, both strikers here, but Xiong's going to have a much easier time. I'm going to take Xiong by TKO here. I think she can actually get it done. It's going to be a China homecoming for her. I should probably take the decision, but I'm going to risk it and just take the TKO because I think Polastri is absolute garbage, and I think Xiong wants to prove something here, especially with all the work she did in one. And, the crowd's going to be on her side. And I've just seen Polastri just fall to her back too many times and eat too many big shots. So give me Xiong by TKO there. And then the curtain jerker here, Ming Ding versus Cam Nelson. Tough one to call. Looks like Cam Nelson's got the goods, though. He's a much more well-rounded guy. He can use his grappling. He does have a ton of first-round knockouts. Ming Ding, in his last fight against the glass-jawed Brazilian, I was not impressed at all. I took Ming Ding pretty confidently. He had a good round, finding the leg kicks, finding his range, but it looks like his IQ is extremely low because he just keeps throwing the same techniques even when they're kind of missing just because they were working in the first round. His cardio's terrible. And I can't really trust this guy. 35-10 record is crazy, but it's fluff. There's a lot of fluff on there. Those WLFF WLF Wars or whatever. A lot of cans in that organization. So I'm going to go with Cam Nelson here, debutant, Canadian, well-rounded skill set, knockout power as well. It's obviously a little tough to be making your debut in China with the jitters and fighting a guy who is pretty big and strong, but again, Meng Ding's cardio, his fight IQ, it's all bad. I'm going to take Cam Nelson here. I haven't really decided the method. I think Cam can get it done any which way because he is well-rounded. I'm going to take the decision, though, just because the jitters might get to him a bit. I feel like it's going to be a grappling-heavy performance because why even give Meng Ding any chance to land his kickboxing, land his low kicks, and have a good round, just to even risk it at the judges' scorecard. So, again, I will go with Cam Nelson, the much more well-rounded guy here. And that's UFC Shanghai. Should be a fun one. It's on very early if you're in the States or on the West Coast, especially like me. But it's a good main event. A lot of name value in that one. And good luck. If you're still here, like, subscribe. I appreciate you watching.